It looks
queuing
like
up.
it's going to be going through.
Yeah. Queuing up the video.
Queuing up the video.
Yeah. Video that we're going to want to show.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Because you have to make sure it's at the right point, too, because it doesn't
Yeah,
start
they
at the
played.
beginning.
Yeah, they showed other things first.
I think it's like, if you have the right one, it should be around like the 4 minute, 5 second
Mhm.
mark or something like that. Yeah.
That's exactly where I got it.
Cool. Yeah. Because I am squashing my hype very early, just from looking at it,
Yeah.
like, But
Really? I think
yeah,
it looks cool. I mean, I haven't played any of them.
I'll explain why. To me, it looks bland when we get into it. But before that, welcome to the Vomitorium, everyone. As always, I'm your host, The Metal, and joining me is my co-host, Marsupial Gamer. How you doing today?
Well, did you notice anything about my voice?
Yeah, you don't sound like the life
I'm
is
not.
being squeezed out of you.
Yeah, I sound normal finally.
Yeah.
Near the end of the day, it creeps back in because I'm still got a bit of a cough,
Yeah.
but I'm being very conscientious about taking my allergy medicine every morning and using this inhaler that I got twice a day.
Oh, okay. I was gonna mention getting
Uh,
like a spritzer or something, but I'm sure an inhaler would probably be much better in that regard.
yeah, it's an Advair inhaler. I don't know. It's some sort of steroid thing, and been for a while. I got it a few months ago, but I wasn't being very conscientious about it. But now I'm doing it
Yeah, you gotta be
every single day,
disciplined.
twice a day. Yeah, and like I said before, I changed my air filter and I vacuumed, and I think my apartment has never been cleaner. So
Environmental
hopefully that's.
control.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm sick of this fucking cough, sick of this voice thing. I got to do something. So I've
Start
been,
process of elimination. It's like, okay, we got this taken care of. It can't be it. This taken care of. It can't be it.
no, yeah, I'm doing everything. I'm just like, well, I'm just going to do everything all at once. See if
Yeah.
I can knock this thing out.
Well,
So yeah,
yeah, you are
doing
sounding
pretty
better
well.
at the moment, so and let's hope it stays in
Yeah.
that trajectory.
And I've been playing Final Fantasy 9.
Remember,
Lots of fun.
you started playing 8 for like an hour. And you're like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Like I can't take it. I thought I could. I thought I could handle it, but the freaking junction system, I'm like, God, I don't understand. I don't understand it. It's too complicated. It's dumb. I can't take it.
Yeah. Hey, Sketchbook. Yeah, no, the junction. So it's actually not that dumb of a system, but here's the problem with it. The junction system is like a tabletop system. But unlike
Yeah.
a tabletop system, you can't have the instruction manual just like open next to you at all times to remember how to do it. Actually, you could
Yeah.
do that with Final Fantasy VIII because the original version, the junction system, was explained in the instruction manual that you don't have anymore, given the fact that it's a digital game.
Yeah. Well, and I have a, what do you call it? A strategy guide that
Yeah,
probably explains it better, but
that's the point.
it's just
right?
not, it's just not fun. I was just like, why am I playing this game? It took me a couple of months to sort of build up the courage to even start it. Cause I was like, I'm not looking forward to this. And then once I got started, I was like, I don't like this. I don't like
Yeah,
it. I
and
don't
some
like it.
people get surprised when I say that that Final Fantasy II is a better game than 8.
Yeah. I would have to agree. Just
Yeah.
from playing 2 from beginning to end, it's tolerable.
Yeah, there's a lot of redeemable
You know?
parts of 2. Like, there's some stupid
Yeah.
parts to it, too, but a lot of redeemable parts.
Yeah. So I don't know. Will I ever go back to it? I don't know. Maybe not.
I'm actually one of the few people I know who's even finished 8. Most people who started don't
Oh yeah.
finish it. Which is weird,
I
because for a
wonder.
long time, it was the best-selling Final Fantasy game. Because 10, I don't think passed it up until the HD remaster. It was pretty close, but I don't think it passed it up till the HD remaster. And 8's still selling copies, so it's still
I don't
up there.
understand. I don't
7
understand
didn't
why
pass it up
9 didn't sell very well,
until
or
recently.
did it?
7's right currently the best-selling Final Fantasy of all time. But that makes sense. Like most of these games, they just
Yeah.
never stopped selling it, and the popularity of 7 just kept growing over time.
Well, why didn't 9 sell? Did it sell very well or
No.
not?
It didn't sell bad, I would say. Like
Yeah.
it didn't do too bad, but it didn't do anywhere near as good as 8, so they went in the direction of 8. I don't even think
See,
it
I
sold
feel
as well
like
as 7 did when 7 first came out.
I feel like it was they both were a product of the previous games because I think I get the feeling 8 sold well on
Seven's
people
variant.
liking 7, yeah,
Yeah.
and then 9 did poorly because nobody liked 8.
Well, maybe, but I think 9 suffered more from marketing because they marketed it in the same way that they did the old Final Fantasy games, which was very cutesy and childlike and stuff like that. While
Mhm.
8 and 7 were both marketed on being the PlayStation games and being edgy and for like
Yeah,
older people. And I think more so 8 somewhat came off of 7's hype, but more so off of the marketing of this is the PlayStation, this is the underground, this is for the older people. And then 9
yeah.
comes out like, I don't want to play a kid's game.
But
Yeah.
I like it because of that, because it's basically
Yeah.
loosely based on 1. I mean, they've got the you start out with a fighter, a thief, a white mage, and a black mage.
Yeah.
And then you get a red mage / dragoon, and you get
Well, the
a
entire game
summoner.
is a love letter to the first 6 Final Fantasies.
Yeah, yeah,
Even your main, well, technically everybody has access to trance, but the main character uses trance the same way that Terra did.
yeah. Looks like you go Super Saiyan, and
Yeah, for everybody else, technically also for Zidane, you use trance like a limit break replacement.
it's Zidane.
That actually is an acceptable way to say it. The English office is fine with Zidane, but in the Japanese, they do pronounce it Zidane.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. So how do you pronounce Quistis?
So it depends, right? That is acceptable, but probably incorrect. And the only time that you ever hear her name pronounced in English is in World of Final Fantasy, and he
Oh.
says Quistis. But
Oh.
the World of Final Fantasy team butchered a lot of stuff from previous games, even things that mythologically are being pronounced incorrect because of the things they're coming from. So it's hard to really use that as a fine point. The Japanese is Kisu Tisu, or like Kistis, because she's a kiss tease. So her name is probably supposed to be pronounced Kistis. And her last name is probably Trip. It's a form of tulip. In Japanese, it's spelled like turepu. So her name is just supposed to be Trip.
Mm-hmm.
And it
And
is
of course,
Rinoa.
Squall.
Yeah. It's Rinoa.
Rinoa.
Not Rinwa. Her name's actually a Japanese name, so it's supposed to be pronounced the way that it looks. Yeah. But yeah, Squall. It's just a Squall.
Yeah.
A stupid naming convention, right? You have Cloud, Squall. Later you have like freaking Lightning. Some of these like spin-off games, Brave Exvius has Rain. It's like just this weather. The main characters are weather.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I get Cloud. He's
weird.
based off of the god of thunder. So yeah, that makes sense. But everybody else.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've got something else to talk about. Something more or less important than Final Fantasy, depending on your
Yeah.
perspective. Kingdom Hearts 4 was
suppose.
announced. It's the 20th anniversary of Kingdom Hearts was on, I believe, Monday. And
Yeah.
they announced 4.
Which is weird because 3 took like a decade or something.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was forever.
So there was really dumb reasons for why 3 took as long as it did. Part of it's Square, part of it's Disney. A lot of it is Nomura had his ideas and both other people kept interjecting into it. It took so long that they even lost entire levels that they made from the earlier development of the game. Like Agrabah was supposed to be in the game. It's in every single Kingdom Hearts, and Agrabah had been cut because the files got corrupted by the time that they actually got around to finishing the game.
What?
Yeah, because it was one of the first things they made, like 10 years ago.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And like, we don't have time to make this level from scratch.
Well, I heard that the Frozen level was cut very short.
Yeah. And it was
Like, it
also
wasn't-
added basically last minute compared to other levels.
Yeah. Is that basically because Frozen was such a big hit
Yeah.
that they wanted to add it?
I think it was Disney kind of like forced their hand to make sure it was in the game. Tangled, I know, was always supposed to be in it, but Tangled had already been out for like, 6 years?
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I think there was 2 years between Tangled and Wreck-It Ralph, and then 2 years between Wreck-It Ralph and Frozen. So yeah, it had been out for like at least 4 years by the time Frozen came out. They had planned for Tangled to be in it. But then they forced a lot of stuff too. Like Big Hero 6 was forced into the game as well, and that was a very last minute ad.
So you say you're not impressed.
I am not.
With
I
the
mean, if you want
trailer.
to show the trailer, you can.
I
can
don't
explain to you
understand.
why I'm not.
I watched it and I was very impressed.
Mechanically, it looks fine. It looks like the direction Kingdom Hearts 3 had been going. As far as gameplay, I might enjoy it. I don't know. I'm going to have to see a lot more because you can barely tell what the mechanics are just from watching the game, right?
Yeah.
It's very quick.
Sketchbook says he used to call Cloud Meg Ryan.
I guess that's fair. He did dress up as a woman at one point in time. Yeah, the Lost Master arc, as they're calling it. So here, the thing starts up, and I'm like, are we even in Kingdom Hearts? It doesn't look like Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah. No, I
It looks
know.
like Final Fantasy VII Advent Children.
Yeah.
And this is why I say it looks bland.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
Final Fantasy 15 is going in this direction. Final Fantasy 7 Remake is going in this direction. But it's not just Final Fantasy. All of the Square games are going into this direction. If you were to just look at it and you weren't told this was Kingdom Hearts, you don't see Sora yet, you just see this shadow forming in the sky, you can't immediately tell what game series this is supposed to be.
yeah.
Right?
But man, look at this Unreal Engine 5 stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be UE5. Look at that.
I would assume so.
Looks amazing.
And Kingdom Hearts always had like this really vibrant, stylized look. Even 3 was mostly
Yeah.
stylized. It's not until like that clip right there where you see like the crown on the chest piece, and then obviously Sora afterwards, that you can even tell you're in a Kingdom Hearts game.
For some reason, they seem to be making Sora look more and more like my sister every time.
He looks like Denzel from Final Fantasy VII Advent Children.
He's the spitting image of my sister.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Then I'm guessing Denzel is also the spitting image of your sister.
Yeah. I guess. I'm like, oh my god, that's so weird.
Yeah, the Quadratum. So here's my hope. I'm still trying to hold out hope. Maybe the game only looks like this in the Quadratum.
Mm-hmm.
Because Sora does tend to change forms when he goes to different worlds, but this doesn't feel like
It's got to have different worlds.
right? This feels like it's outside of a world, or like it's a different dimension, whatever the Quadratum is.
Yeah.
So like I
It's
think
like
this is
the-
going to be the default view of what Sora and the characters are going to look like for the game.
It's like the Nexus from Star Trek 9.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. I think they think they're in the real world, but it's not. But then it's not. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird. What I really like is how it seems to shift seamlessly from this cinematic to the gameplay.
Yeah,
That's
they
what's
did.
impressive
They were
to
doing
me.
that in Kingdom Hearts 3 already, so that's not new for the series.
Keyblade.
One of the
And how
most
much of
noticeable
this?
parts is in the Pirates of the Caribbean level, which takes you like half an hour before it lets you save after entering the Pirates of the Caribbean level in 3.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
See, now how much of this is actual controllable gameplay? Because I mean, I see.
I don't think most of that is. Like right here, I think is when you start getting
Yeah.
control. It's like a quick time sequence.
Yeah,
but
where
they
you
do
just
this
have
a
to
lot.
push certain buttons.
Yeah. They've added a
'Cause,
lot
like,
of
you could-
hardcore stuff into Kingdom Hearts since Dream Drop
Yeah.
Distance, so I don't know how much going through the building was. But also in Kingdom Hearts 2, they had you slicing through skyscrapers in the world
Yeah.
that never was. And there's like organization members. So like, and that was all quick time. So I don't even know how much you're playing. That's why I'm saying like the mechanics look good, but I can't even tell exactly what they are just from looking at it.
And you
I
know
also
what?
hate
That
the
looks
logo.
like. I know it looks like Kingdom Hearts 3, right?
They
You
just
cut
took the
off
3
the
and they
bottom.
turned it into a V. It's for 4.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
It.
It's like, wait a minute, that says Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
hate that logo. I hate it so much.
And then they have Donald and Goofy.
They look all right, so I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I love Goofy's Japanese voice. Can we play that?
I'm not going to, but
Okay. Yeah, you have to watch it for yourself. I love his Japanese voice is funny.
I don't know. Goofy's great.
So who's? Oh, so someone was speculating. Is that Hades?
Possibly, since it goes from the
Behind
blue to
them?
the red, and when Hades
Yeah.
gets angry, his fire goes from blue to red.
Yeah.
So with the cutting of Agrabah, Olympus is the only level that has been in every single Kingdom Hearts game. So it is very, very likely that Hades would be in this next one.
Hmm.
Closed beta tests for
Oh, yeah, that's from the previous
mobile-looking game was. I don't even know what it is.
Yeah. Well, I'll play it again at full speed
Yeah.
if you want to. So you're not. So is that all? I mean, what else? What are you?
That's
what
all
are
we
you
know
not-
about the game so far. That's it.
No, but I mean, what are you not impressed with, or what are you not?
Visually, it doesn't feel like Kingdom Hearts. I can't even tell
Yeah.
how much of this is gameplay. It looks like you might be playing
Yeah.
a movie, which is another thing that I've been hating about how good and cinematic games have been looking.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be plenty of gameplay in areas like this where you're actually running around fighting Heartless, but like that boss fight looked like it was potentially lame as fuck for what might be
Yeah.
the intro boss to the game.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily want to play a Kingdom Hearts game to play in a normal looking world, like being in downtown Shibuya. That's not like my goal. I want to go to like Traverse Town or whatever. It was actually like my problem with how they were selling Final Fantasy 15 at first. And this reminds me
Yeah.
a lot of Final Fantasy 15. I thought we were going to be spending a lot of time in Insomnia, and that was going to be very depressing. It's like, I don't want to be in this downtown city playing Final Fantasy necessarily.
Yeah.
But then you only ever go into it at the end, and you only even explore it in the Windows and Kingsglaive edition. But it's just like, I don't know, everything about this just feels like it's taking the personality out of Kingdom Hearts. And I'm not going to judge it too harshly, because
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll see plenty more before the game is coming out. I'm just saying, from this alone, it doesn't excite me for the game. It looks very bland.
Yeah. And those characters. Oh, so he did put on shoes. I was wondering that.
Also, everybody's kind of pissed at Sora's look, right?
Really?
Yeah, in some ways, he looks like Sora. He's got like his face and his hair is very Sora. But people were upset that he doesn't have his big Kingdom Hearts clown shoes, because he's got like Mickey Mouse like shoes.
Oh.
And his clothes
Yeah.
are kind of the same style, but they just look like a closet cosplay of Sora. That's all. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. Meaning you find whatever is in your closet
To
that's close
match.
enough.
Yeah, to try to get the aesthetic down.
Yeah. Yeah, why? But see, that always bothered me. Why does he wear such big shoes?
Because Mickey Mouse, he was supposed to be like if you put a Final Fantasy character in Disney. So they had to like,
Yeah.
the actual original sketches were done by Nomura, and he drew them like Disney characters. Actually, if I recall too, well, of the version of Sora we got now, originally Sora was supposed to look like some type of lion boy, but some of the oldest sketches actually had him in that rubber hose style. And eventually in Kingdom Hearts 2, they brought that into the whole Timeless River level, where they went back to the Steamboat Willie. But yeah, those big shoes, they give him that like Disney character look.
Yeah.
Big gloved hands, too.
They're kind of weird. Well, Goofy's wearing big shoes.
Yeah.
But he probably has big feet, so.
Yeah, could you imagine if Donald Duck was wearing shoes with his like wide web duck feet that are big? Like, that'd be weird shoes. But yeah, I'm not impressed. I'm holding my breath on it. I'll wait until like the next trailer where they actually show more of the game.
Yeah, and the question is how far away is it?
I have no clue. 10 years?
Yeah. I can't believe, so Kingdom Hearts 3 was released 2 years ago? No, wait. 3 years ago. Wait.
Yeah.
19?
I think.
3 years?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It seems like it was just yesterday. That's crazy.
And
how was it released 3 years ago?
How was it only released 3 years ago?
That's what I'm saying. It seems like it was just...
It should have been released like 5 years before that.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, I mean, maybe next year.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't think they would have done a trailer if it was still like 5 years away or something.
I don't know. Do you remember Square Enix and E3 like back in the 2015 to 2017 era, where it's like, hey, here's games we're going to be putting out 4 years from now, even though we're showing it at E3 now.
Yeah, but I think they learned their lesson, didn't they?
I don't know. It's Square.
Hopefully.
Doesn't look like they're learning their lesson in anywhere else.
So here's an article on Disney-owned properties we want to see in Kingdom Hearts 4. And it starts with Futurama.
God, no, I don't want... Like, I like Futurama. I don't want that in Kingdom Hearts. I don't want them incorporating all this Fox stuff that they've acquired. At one point, I wanted them to put Marvel in there, which technically they did with Big Hero 6, but the way they made it is less of a Marvel property and more of just a Disney. But I don't want them incorporating Marvel. They would be horrible at this point. Like, it'd be awful. I just wanted a Mjolnir Keyblade. That's really the only thing I wanted.
Yeah.
I don't want Star Wars in there. Get that out of there.
Muppets? What about the Muppets?
You know what? I'd be fine with a Muppet level. I think that would actually work well with the like general themes and aesthetic of Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
Especially seeing some of the Muppets walking around on two legs. That'd be pretty funny.
The Walking Dead. Does Disney own The Walking Dead?
Throw that out of there. I don't want that at all.
What about the X-Files?
No.
Interesting.
I'm trying to think what I actually would want in there that I think would match the game and story very well. Excuse me.
I mean, it would be cool if they could incorporate DC characters, but that's not owned by Disney.
I wouldn't want that either, even if Disney did own it.
You wouldn't?
No, I don't think the superhero stuff belongs there. Really?
Yeah.
I mean, because you've already got something close anyway. Because you've got like Hercules, who's already basically Superman. He just can't fly.
Mm-hmm.
But he kind of can fly. He can fight on Pegasus. I'm trying to think, like, what has Disney done? You know, I actually wouldn't mind a Princess and the Frog level. That would be pretty cool. Right. Sora.
Yeah.
kind of like a replacement to the Lion King level, Sora can get shrunk down to be like a frog himself or whatever. Donald and Goofy could be like an actual dog and a duck.
But you have to fight the witch
Doctor.
I don't know, the witch doctor guy.
The Baron. He's not actually a witch doctor, but yeah.
Whatever.
Anastasia. Now, see, that's a Fox property I wouldn't mind seeing in there because that would actually kind of fit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you actually screw Star Wars. If you want to put in something like that, put in a Titan AE, which I believe they technically own.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else. Actually, I'd rather just see instead of pirates again, even though they keep bringing pirates back. I would like to see Treasure Planet. Put Treasure Planet in there. I would. You don't even have to make that a world. That you could actually have like a Treasure Planet thing in the lane between worlds. That would be pretty fun. But yeah, Treasure Planet. That's an actual Disney thing. Atlantis has never had a level. Throw Atlantis in there. That'd be pretty fun. Yeah, you can have like big rock monster crystal heartless things that would be fun to fight against. Just think what else what would be cool. That's the real thing. Like that's the problem with like putting in stupid things like Star Wars or Marvel. It's like, yeah, I mean they can be good stories on their own, but would they be cool to incorporate in what is Kingdom Hearts? Toy Story was pretty cool. Tron was a cool level because like once you were inside the cyberspace, basically anything could happen.
Oh yeah, Tron is awesome.
Yeah, Tron was in Kingdom Hearts 2. What would be good? Would be good. There's some Disney properties that never get touched. You want a superhero thing? Rocketeer. Make a Rocketeer level. I'm fine with that.
Here you go.
Yeah. But I think that's actually the lame part, right? Star Wars would be a little more entertaining, but the problem with Marvel is, they would just make it in New York if they made a Marvel level. It would and that would be boring, right? It'd be like the thing we just saw. They're Heartless and Nobodies would pop up, but for the most part, it would just be like normal people walking around. Maybe it could be like the Avengers movie. Maybe you might see some of what are they called? The Chitauri or whatever the freaking insect-like things were.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's my problem too. It's like looking at that aesthetic, it just looks like they're going to water down the cool parts of the game because all of the worlds you go to have to be stylized anyway. You can't make them overly realistic. Could you imagine going to like Olympus or like Beauty and the Beast and all the textures are that realistic, but then like the people don't look like people because they're Disney characters? Or even worse, they don't look like the Disney characters because you just modeled some like meta-human NPCs to look close to the character. Like it's driving me insane thinking about it. Like I really hope that's just the Quadratum. I really do.
Yeah, because those people didn't look all that much better than like New Donk City.
Yeah, but they look like background
Odyssey.
characters in Advent Children. That's all they look like.
Yeah. I don't know why they can't.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's too much to get people to look like people.
I don't want people to look like people, though.
They sure got like the buildings to look exactly like.
Yeah, but buildings, that's easy to get built. They're just like simple shapes that you texture. Like buildings should have looked more like buildings a long time ago once we started getting enough storage space that we could just put good textures on stuff, and then once lighting could reflect off the textures properly, that's all you need to make a skyscraper look like a skyscraper. People, though, especially skin is hard to get down. It's a very complex surface. that reflects light in many different directions because of the way it folds, especially like forehead ridges or the shadows and stuff like it. It's hard to make a person look like a person. But I don't want realistic people in my games. I could go watch a live action movie if I want realistic people. I want really nice stylized things. Just if they're going to go the Advent Children route or Final Fantasy 15, that is the most realistic I want anything to look. Just there. Do not push any further. That's the line. I'm fine. Yeah. I don't know.
Oh, well, now this is a depressing story.
What is it?
Depressing for me personally. It just popped up. Dungeons and Dragons, Hasbro has bought the D&D Beyond tool set for Dungeons and Dragons, which is the tool set that replaced the one that we were building for Hasbro.
I'm familiar with D&D Beyond too, like what their tool set is and everything.
Yeah, that's the one that came about basically when Wizards of the Coast fired us.
Oh.
They didn't like our tool
like
set.
Just a sharp spike right there.
Yeah. Well, it was acquired for $146 million. So
No.
if we had
Could have been you.
done a
Could
better,
have been you.
I know, if we had done a better job with our tool set, I guess I could have sold it for 140. Actually, apparently, the original company that developed it sold it in 2018 when that company was acquired by Twitch, apparently. But anyway,
Yeah.
well, that's depressing. Well, I hope you enjoy your crappy tool set that wasn't as good as ours, Hasbro.
Yeah.
Ours was better.
I'm not a fan of D&D Beyond.
Yeah, me
actually,
neither.
I don't know if the tool set's actually my problem. It might actually just mostly be the community, because D&D Beyond has all of their tools and utilities and stuff like that. But then there's also like a forum and user posting area, and that's also where a lot of people in those forums, they host their homebrew. It's more, I think the community is more what I have a problem with than anything. I don't like them. They're awful people.
Yeah. Well, I don't like the company, so there.
And maybe there's some good people in the community. I don't know. Usually it's only the loudest people you ever see.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't. I think they added the community features later.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't have that in ours. I don't think they had that in theirs at first.
You could tell the community. Obviously, there's any D&D community you go to. There's like DM forums, like, or sub forums where that's just where all the DMs spend their time. But like, you could tell the majority of the community, especially the homebrew they make, they don't like the dungeon masters. And in fact, like, there's so many homebrew about like rules that supersede the dungeon master. I'm like, I'm sorry, that's not how the game works. Like, that rule would only exist because the dungeon master even allows it. It's homebrew.
Yeah. Oh, GMT was suggesting the Polar Express level for Kingdom Hearts.
You know, using Advent Children graphics, you'd actually probably make the Polar Express look like a good movie.
Yeah.
The story's not bad, but God, the uncanny valley of that movie is just horrendous.
Yeah. Like, almost all the characters look like, what's his name? Forrest Gump.
Well, to be fair, they were.
Yeah.
The Ticketmaster and I think Santa Claus, a bunch of the people were the same person showing up multiple times, and it was all Tom Hanks. So
yeah, the homeless guy, I think.
Yeah. It was kind of like there was another movie where that was the case. It was like the guard at the Emerald City Gate, and a bunch of the people along the way, and the fortune teller in Dorothy's Dream were all the wizard. They're all played by the same guy, and because it's supposed to be Dorothy's dream, she's seeing people she knew And this dude is the one that kind of like center on the journey, so it was very important to keep seeing him pop up over and over again.
Yeah.
T. Hanks time.
Well, all right.
Yeah.
I guess I
No,
should
that
stop
is kind of
making
sad.
yeah. But sad. Yeah. I mean, I could tell you so many stories about that. Honestly, I blame the project manager I put in charge. I should have been the project manager, I guess.
Well, I mean, that's also kind of just blaming yourself at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have put that guy in charge of anything. Fucked it up. Oh well.
No, as they say,
Anyway.
you gotta do it yourself.
There was another story.
Oh, what'd you got?
Yeah, I hated to, abruptly change the subject, but that one kind of stuck out to me as soon as I saw it. $167 million. But anyway, I was watching this video by this guy named Kaze, Kaze, who I guess is a modder, and he might be a Super Mario 64 speedrunner, maybe.
Is it?
I know he's a modder.
Kaze.
Oh, maybe it's Kaze.
Yeah. Like Kamikaze.
Who apparently took the source code of Super Mario Brothers or Super Mario 64 and actually practically rewrote the whole thing. Like, I mean, he delved into the however many 100,000 or hundreds of thousands of lines of code and optimized it. He didn't change the game at all. He just made it run much, much, much faster. And it's amazing. There's an 18-minute video called Fixing the Entire SM64 Source Code. And he goes through the entire game. Apparently, did you hear that, like, someone figured out years ago that when they first compiled Super Mario 64, they compiled it in debug mode?
Yeah.
And that all you had to do was flip a switch and the performance was 10 times better just by compiling it in sort of production mode. Well, there was that,
because
of
it was
course.
compiled in debug mode. It's so easy to accidentally end up in what they call debug rooms, which are empty spaces that aren't supposed to exist. There's one in particular where if you fire yourself out of the can at a certain angle into the stained glass window and in front of the castle, you can fall into it and you'll end up in this black empty space on one side of the door. That's like the inside of the castle, and you can see the outside. But if you go through the door, it brings you to the other side of the door in a black empty space on the outside of the inside of the castle. And you can't exit without just like turning the game off.
Well, this guy Kaze went through line by line, and I mean, it's kind of amazing the stuff he found. I mean, he basically figured out that, like, for instance, that there had to have been multiple teams working on it or multiple groups of developers, because he was like, there's so much like repetition of code.
Yeah.
And he's like, he could, he found like all this stuff where he could just eliminate huge blocks of code because it was like, this is repeated. I could just call this code. Why am I calling these different functions that do the exact same thing? And he's just eliminating, refactoring, and just completely getting rid of unused variables. I mean, simple stuff that you would typically do when you're sort of cleaning up a big project.
Yeah.
But he got it to run, I guess, some like double the frames per second. And he was like, well, basically, and also he got it to, one of the optimizations he did was to make it use the extra memory that you could get for the Nintendo 64. with the expansion pack,
Yes.
the red top expansion pack. He set it up so that if you have that, it will use it and go even faster and use it efficiently. So at any rate, I think it clears the way for more impressive mods of Super Mario 64. Because basically there are limitations to what you could do, how many characters you could have on the screen.
No, GMT.
That sort of thing.
They did not pay the coding team by word count.
But yeah, if you go through the whole video, fixing the entire SM64 source code is the name of the video, and it's fascinating. I was fascinated by it. It's very nerdy.
I think the reason why it's probably so clunky is that was a couple years before Iwata really started getting involved in Nintendo, and that part of what he did was clean up code very early on. And if he was
plus it was like
64, he probably would have done all that stuff himself.
Yeah. Plus it was early. I think it came out wasn't it a launch title for the Nintendo 64?
But they had been working on it for like a couple years before the system came out. So it's not like they didn't have time. Yeah.
But I mean, they may not have fully understood the best way to optimize for the hardware.
Maybe.
Yeah. And this guy was saying like they didn't use, I guess it was written in C. And
I would imagine.
Yeah, and he was saying more modern techniques of C code. He used more modern techniques, and he was like, was able to improve the
in fact, it would have to be written
enormously.
in C because with the N64, you were still doing everything by assembly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the way the the motherboard, like the BIOS of the motherboard would be communicating would be in C, so that would be the only way you could do it.
Yeah, he was, and this guy obviously knew his stuff. He was talking about how the CPU syncs up with essentially, it's not really a GPU, but essentially the module that writes to the screen.
Yes.
And they had to do this back and forth, and he was able to sync them up better or something like that, because I guess the CPU was getting starved while it was waiting for the other thing, or vice versa, or something like that. And so yeah, it's kind of an amazing video.
Yeah, it sounds like a oscillation problem.
Yeah, well, apparently there's the memory in the middle.
Yeah,
and you got the CPU on one side, and you've got the rendering hardware on the other, and the CPU would have to calculate a frame, send it to memory, and then it'd have to come back out, get rendered. It'd have to say, okay, it got rendered, and it would say, okay, CPU, do the next frame.
Yeah.
So it kind of had this oscillation.
It's supposed to have like a metronome almost pattern to it.
Yeah. But he somehow figured out how to do that better, more efficiently. So
even the GameCube was still doing that, despite having an actual like sophisticated operating system for the first time in a console history for Nintendo. But it still had to call things the same way. It's actually
because there's one shared memory.
Nintendo does that a lot for their stuff, because they still write their games as if it's functioning that way, so that frame count is consistent across franchises, right? So like in Smash Brothers, one of the ways you know about like the input lag, right, for startup and ending lag on things, is because you can tell how long it's going to take the input to register into the system before it actually ends up on screen, and you've got like certain windows to buffer. And Nintendo still kind of mostly works that way with all their systems.
Which is weird because, like, modern systems, Switch included, has VRAM, right?
Yeah.
It has a modern graphics chip with video RAM that, it doesn't have to work that way anymore.
But it is how it is. I think they're just, as a company, probably just too used to working that way. Right? Because you really only see it in Nintendo games. Third-party games don't function that way.
Yeah, they must have a lot of old coders that are just used to doing it that way.
Yeah.
It's funny how coding teams tend to, I imagine they bring in new people and they just teach them the same way that they've been doing it for decades. Because I've even noticed, the way that, like, say, Shroud of the Avatar,
Yeah.
the the latest MMO from Richard Garriott.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell it's the same team. It's not because it's bad, because
Yeah.
Ultima 8 and Ultima 9 are pretty bad games. It's much, much better than that, but I can tell the way things work that it's the same team or
They have the
very
same
similar
habits.
team.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like,
well, that's
you can sort of recognize
Yeah.
the
Like
gameplay.
Smash Brothers does the same way because Sakurai is still in charge of it. So all the Smash Brother games feel the same across for the most part. Because you can see Sakurai's habits in there, even if other coders are working on the game with him.
Yeah. It's really funny that you can sort of recognize some gameplay elements from Ultima 9 in Shroud of the Avatar, even though it's 20 years later and the game is infinitely better, but you can still sort of see it. It's sort of in the DNA.
Yeah. Well, I call it voice, right? Like, it usually comes from writing. If you're like a novelist or any type of writer, a writer develops a voice as they do things. And even if they write in a different perspective, if they switch between active or passive tone, you can still kind of tell who's writing because their voice comes through. You can see that in art, and I would imagine programming is the same way because you have the fingerprint of your habits. So even if you're working in a specific format or code, you're still gonna call things certain ways. Your variables are gonna look a certain way too. Somebody will look at your code, they're probably like, "Oh, that's a shorthand he uses a lot."
Yeah. But I just think it's very, very interesting. I was surprised when I played Shroud of the Avatar. I'm like, oh, that's this is definitely, I can recognize it instantly as it's either a Richard Garriott game or it's an Origin game or something. There's somebody
his
in
hand
there
in
that's,
the pot somewhere.
Yeah. It's kind of cool. Speaking of which, I heard he's working on something new, so looking forward. I don't know anything about it, but
Yeah.
I heard he's working on something.
That's exciting.
So, we'll see.
I like when people have been around forever are still working on stuff, because you never know what it might be. It might be awful because they might bring some old habits that haven't aged well to it, but it might be great because a lot of new people aren't necessarily making that good stuff anymore. So why not have somebody who's been in the industry forever do something?
Yeah, well, Shroud is pretty good. I mean, it's the top tier MMO.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's not, I don't have time to play it, but I have friends who still play it and it looks fun.
Man, dude, everybody's always trying to get me into a different MMO. Like every single
Yeah.
It's like, I got stuff to do, right? I can't juggle 16 MMOs. Come on, guys. There's people trying to get me into Black Desert Online now, which I own a copy of the game. It's like, do I really want to play
Yeah,
this?
isn't that free?
I think the
I
basic
have it
version
too.
is free. It was completely free for like a temporary, like there was a gift time
temporarily.
Yeah, where if like you added to your account, you would keep it forever. There's a window to pick it up. I do think there's like a free model of it now, but I own the full version of the game. And
No, really?
Yeah. So like, and I just don't play it. It's one of those things like I'll pick it up now and I'll just play it later because once I own it, I own it. And they're like trying to get me into it. It's like, but I'm already playing so many other things and I got to work on stuff. If I only play it with you guys, if like the only time I touch it is when I'm playing with you. But it's hard to do that, right? Because once you get invested into a game, you want to start like grinding on the side by yourself and things like that.
Yeah.
Especially with Black Desert. Black Desert is a horrible game because it is demanding. It runs things by seasons. So there are season rewards and stuff. So that means you actually have to play enough to get the season rewards, almost like you're playing a MOBA or something like that. And you even have like season characters, which are characters that you play just for that season that you'll probably end up nuking by the next season. Because a lot about that game is trying to get you to grind from 0 to max, or from 1 to the level cap every single season. And I think it's only in the second season, so the seasons are pretty long. But still, it's just like, that's a demanding game to try to get into if you're trying to like pull a friend into a game. and they've got other
Yeah.
stuff that they do. Unlike Final Fantasy 14, where there's like might be an event going on, but you can really just do it at any fucking pace you want. It's no problem. The only thing that rushes you is if you're paying for the game, you want to play it within the month that you paid for it.
Yeah. Well, I do own it, but I've never played it. I just downloaded it when it was free.
I was playing it last night. I started a new season character too. This is really tall.
I see when I see the last time you played.
Yeah.
I can see it in Steam.
Yeah, it shows. It's a fun game. I don't think it's very strategic, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, especially with MMOs, and it does get harder later. But they're like, oh, well, it's a game where you're actually actively playing, kind of like Dark Souls or whatever. Like you're actually like swinging and you're doing combos and stuff. But because it's an MMO, they have to give you a little bit of allowance, and stats matter a lot. So you're still kind of a stat stick at the end of the day. But you have all these like crazy AoE moves and things like that. You can just get over armored, and really it looks like you're dodging things. It looks like you're doing all these fun, cool maneuvers. But at the end of the day, you're really just hitting things. And like there's no elemental advantages or disadvantages. You don't even really have to pay attention too much to the oh hey Alec, you don't have to pay attention too much to like what the boss is doing, like avoiding AoEs and stuff, because you're probably going to survive anyway, even if you're squishy. They're very low skill games that make you think that you have a lot of skill, while something that's closer to not necessarily a turn-based game, but things where menuing is like the big thing, usually actually take a higher degree of strategy, because a bad decision could cost you the entire fight.
Yeah.
And you can usually get by things at a lower level than you're supposed to. Except for 14. I hate 14 in that way, because it's like right smack dab in the middle of, it's basically World of Warcraft, which is the lowest strategy game ever, and it's just come down, this is the way you have to do the thing, so learn it.
Yeah. Asmund Gold's been complaining lately about, well, he's been complaining about World of Warcraft for a couple of years now, I think.
Yeah. I mean, 14 is a lot more forgiving than WoW. You can try different strategies, but that's all every WoW dungeon. So there literally is no strategy. You learn what the dungeon wants you to do, you do it. That's it.
Yeah.
And if you don't do it, you fail. End of story. Yeah.
Yep. Well, guess what came out on Switch yesterday?
What came out on Switch yesterday?
Which is weird. Games don't usually come out on Tuesdays, but this one did. Don't Starve Together.
Oh,
came out
that wasn't
yesterday.
already on Switch?
Nope, just
I'm
the original
surprised.
Don't Starve, the single player.
Yeah.
And now you can play multiplayer Don't Starve on Switch. Got nothing to say about that?
Oh, sorry.
Because there's not much to say.
No, I mean, that's cool. I like Don't Starve Together. I actually am not that big a fan of Don't Starve before Together. But after Together came out, I really, really like Don't Starve. And I think for me, I ran it as many times as I felt I could before multiplayer was added to it. Which was probably, I think I went through like 20 runs. And I was like, I've had enough of this game. But then, once multiplayer was added, it's like, oh, I could play this with somebody else anytime, and I'd probably have a good time. And I've played it with like several other people, and I enjoyed every single time I played it.
Well, I happened to notice it when I was playing on the Switch earlier today. And
Garfield Kart came out. Garfield Kart had to come out on a Tuesday GMT, because you couldn't put it on a Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually they release games. I mean, they release most of the games on Fridays.
Yeah. So that you can have the weekend to look forward to it. It's a good selling point.
Yeah.
Blockbuster used to have their best business on Fridays because you'd rent whatever movies you want to watch for the weekend and you'd return them on like Monday or whatever. Even though you would have until the next Friday, a lot of people just like to turn it in early because they didn't want to like accidentally forget to turn their movies in. Oh, I remember Blockbuster Fridays. Those were always fun. Wouldn't even get a movie. I'd get a game for the week. I miss Blockbuster. Renting games was cool. And in the modern, like, I hate ideas like GameFly. It's like, well, you could still rent a game. We're just going to mail it to you. It's like, no. Dude, I hated the idea that Netflix was going to mail it to you, even though that's kind of what shut Blockbuster down before they even really started getting into the streaming side of things. Netflix was already killing Blockbuster. But I always thought that was dumb. I was like, I don't want to wait for a movie to get mailed to me. And then when I'm done, I have to mail it back to wait for the next one. Or you could have some overlap because they let you have up to 3 movies at a time. There's like this whole mailing thing, and what if it gets damaged in the mail, and then I'm like liable for it or whatever, and or it comes from their end, so they're the ones liable. But I'm still waiting another week for the replacement copy of the thing that got damaged in the mail. We were already at discs by this point too, and they were putting in these like stupid like computer sleeves, like, you know, those paper sleeves with the plastic window that they used to do for discs. They weren't even giving you like a plastic case or whatever for it. It was so dumb. I hated that idea, and somehow it beat going to the video rental store renting a movie for a week.
Yeah,
some of my favorite games I played on rental only too, like Snowboard Kids 2, best racing game ever.
Snowboard Kids 2.
Oh, dude, you never played Snowboard Kids?
No.
Okay, so Snowboard Kids is an Atlas game, which Atlas makes the like Shin Megami Tensei series. They also make, well, they don't make, but they help produce a lot of like the Arc Sys games and stuff too. But primarily Persona and the Megami Tensei series that's the thing most people know Atlas for. And they do a bunch of other random stuff. And Snowboard Kids was the snowboarding game that was a downhill racing game where you would do like 3 laps, and you'd be like this little kid on a snowboard. You would grind down a hill, doing tricks and stuff, picking up items in a Mario Kart way, trying to hit other people. And when you got to the bottom, you would try to be the first person to make it into the line for the ski lift. That was actually part of like getting into the corner perfectly. And you would wait like 10 seconds for the ski lift to pull you back to the top, and then you'd go down the hill again. And if you were good enough, you could even lap people, despite everybody being pulled downhill by gravity. The whole goal was to finish your 3 laps first. Really fun game. Had this really like anime Saturday morning cartoon aesthetic to it, very chibi. Every single scene in it was almost like a children's cartoon, where it's like, ha ha ha, I'm Damon, and I'm going to trick the kids by planting this bomb in their sandcastle, or you know, stupid things like that. I loved the games. I loved the mechanics. And Snowboard Kids 2 was even better than the original. It was like one of those true sequels where they did everything the first one did right, and then added more to it. And then they fucked the series because they never made one on the GameCube. Then they eventually made one on the DS, but it wasn't Snowboard Kids 3. We never got Snowboard Kids 3. We got a reboot called Snowboard Kids SBK, which SBK is just Snowboard Kids. I hate it when companies do this, like DMC, Devil May Cry. Like, but the DMC just means Devil May Cry. And the kids were like realistic looking. They looked like teenagers. It didn't have any of the personality or flair of the original game. It was more like a 1080 snowboarding game or whatever. And I'm just like, why? Why did you ruin your perfect franchise?
Snowboard Kids SBK.
Like, what kind of name is that? I'm a fucking Japanese people. They'd be like, I'm going to make an ATM game. I'm going to call it Automated Teller Machine ATM.
Yeah. World of Warcraft, WoW.
Yeah. I'm surprised that's not what they called Classic. to be honest.
Yeah.
If the Japanese department was in charge of Classic, that's what they would have named it.
Mm. Maybe eventually they'll come out with an Elden Ring ER.
Yeah. That's actually going to be the next Elder Scrolls. It's going to be Elder Scrolls ES.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And I've
Hey,
loved it.
I can't believe you're sitting around waiting for Snowboard Kids 3, and I'm like, I just want Fantasy Life 2. That's all I want. Why isn't there a Fantasy Life 2? I don't understand it.
Have you tried harassing the developer?
Yeah, well, they're
'Cause
Japanese.
I have.
And they made a Fantasy Life 2 that was mobile and Japan only. And I'm like, come on, guys, seriously. If they just did a remake, if they did a Fantasy Life FL,
Yeah.
Fantasy Life Deluxe FL on the Switch, I would buy it. I'd buy it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
If it was just the original Fantasy Life with all the DLC and everything, so I wouldn't have to play it on DS.
Yeah.
Or 3DS. God damn.
Man. I might go back to harassing Atlas. The thing is, they make so much money with Persona that they would not even notice one person harassing them to bring Snowboard Kids back.
Oh, come on, Snowboard Kids.
Snowboard
Well, how old is it? I mean,
64. Both of the games were on the 64. The Snowboard Kids 1 and 2.
Oh, they were.
That's
3D?
how old. Yeah, they were 3D games.
Oh,
And then
was gonna
the
say, if it
DS was the last
2D
time they made one.
I was gonna say, if it's 2D, we could probably. Well, I mean, even if it's 3D, could probably remake it ourselves. Maybe we can license the IP.
Maybe, dude. I fucking love Snowboard Kids. It's unironically one of my favorite games of all time. I would put it up there on the list. Is Snowboard Kids
Who's
2.
the owner?
Atlas.
Let me look this.
Atlas
Oh,
owns the
Atlas.
game. Yeah.
Really? They probably don't even remember it.
Again, the last time they made a game was on the DS for Snowboard Kids, and that was a remake.
They kept it on the DS. Oh, and it was available on PlayStation. Apparently.
Yeah. I would love just randomly open up my Switch one day and I get news that Snowboard Kids 3 is available for the Nintendo Switch.
Well, I mean,
Release
they
the
could come
snowboard
out-
cut.
the Snowboard Kids cut, yeah.
It sounds like
I mean,
you go to like your barber shop and he's like, yeah, I want the Snowboard Kids cut.
is that what the kids are calling it these days? The Snowboard Kids?
Yeah, it used to be like the boys cut. It's like, no, I want the kids cut, the Snowboard Kids cut.
Yeah. I mean, they could release it on the Nintendo 64 thing.
They should.
Whatever it's called.
But that, again, they would have to get Atlas involved, right? So like almost any of the games that release on the Switch Online stuff are either Nintendo games or they get the license renewed by the owner to put it on there.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you should do that. Start the hashtag trend.
Oh, Snowboard Kids 3, damn it.
Squeaker says that'll be the next expansion for Elden Ring.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's referring to Snowboard Kids expansion, but that's what I like to think.
No. The ER in Elden Ring actually stands for emergency room because that's where your character is just constantly visiting.
That's right. Instead of dying, they take you to a hospital.
Yeah.
Man, he's in here again?
They take as their fee all of your runes every single time.
Yeah. By the way, the Elden Ring speedruns are under 7 minutes now. Mm-hmm. They completely skip every boss.
Apparently, you can beat Elden Ring without even moving.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I didn't bring that up. That was one of the article titles that I had read.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, the only trick to these speedruns is zipping in just the right place.
Yeah.
And when I'm watching the speed runs, like half the time is I'm sitting there with a sword going like this, and then they move, and then I didn't get it, sword. And then they turn around, and then they hold the sword, and then suddenly they just zip away, and they're in the next area. I'm like, the stupid. Are they not going to patch out the zipping?
No.
I mean, it'll screw everything. Can they not?
It's going to stay there. They probably could. They're not going to.
Really? I'd
Yeah.
be surprised.
I don't think From actually cares that much about like speedrunners breaking their game, because as long as it doesn't impact other people's enjoyment of the game, they're not one of those companies that have really patched games to hurt speedrunners in the past. Though they've only been patching a few of their games. I don't think they really did any patches for the first 2 Dark Souls outside of the expansion. And then 3, it was just for there was PvP in 3. I think that was all the patching was for. They're not really known. Yeah.
If it was Nintendo, they would.
Oh yeah, dude. Nintendo hates it.
They patched the shit. They patched the shit out of Breath of the Wild whenever speedrunners found new things to do.
Yeah, but also because I don't think Breath of the Wild was meant to be speedrun, right? Like, they didn't consider that. They were like, this is the fastest way we want you to play the game, and that's if you just go straight to Ganon, right?
Yeah.
They didn't want you to find any way of going faster than that. Kind of like how the original Legend of Zelda, you could do a fast route of going straight to Ganon if you knew what to do.
Well, it wasn't even necessarily speedrunners. It was things like, there was a way to sort of set the whole world in this weird glitch mode.
Yeah.
So that you could get like Korok, like every Korok seed, like instantly, or not instantly.
Yeah.
You could get all of them.
I know Nintendo's perspective too, and they are pretty hard on it. I'm not giving them any slack from this being their perspective. But they don't want anything in their game they perceive would ruin the experience of the game.
Yeah.
Whatever they think that experience should be. And sometimes they're assholes about it. And sometimes they're kind of justified when you look at it from a case-to-case basis.
Yeah.
They left a lot of like the speedrunning glitches in Mario Odyssey. But they also... Mario Odyssey is a game that's meant to be able to be played fast, looking at all like the different mobility tricks and stuff they put into the game.
Right. Well, do you remember a game we talked about, I think last week? A bullet hell game called Vampire Survivors?
I remember vaguely talking about it. That's about it.
I think I mentioned, I feel like you brought it up. Maybe not.
I don't think
I remember.
so.
I remember mentioning it because it had apparently like sprites that looked like they came out of Castlevania.
Yeah, I think that's why you brought it up.
Yeah. Well, apparently it has exploded in popularity.
Oh.
Like crazily. Like this stupid little game that I don't know why it even came across my radar last week. But like Asmongold's been playing it.
Yeah.
Like
he's
crazy.
pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he alone is the reason, but it's apparently exploding in popularity. And like this Diablo creator, David Brevik, is like talking about it and saying, "Oh, I want to make a game like that."
Yeah.
I want to make a little game like that.
Bullet hells are fun.
Yeah. It's such a silly little. It's kind of a bullet hell roguelike kind of thing where you play until you die, and then the next time you have more powerful weapons and things like that.
Yeah, I've played a lot of roguelike bullet hells, or most of the ones I've played are roguelites. Like, what's that one that was really good? Enter the Gungeon is a kind of bullet hell. Yeah. There's Nuclear Throne, I think, is the name of another one that's pretty good. There's quite a few bullet hell roguelikes. Even technically, like, I think Isaac is the one that started. But the Binding of Isaac at certain points of the game, especially against some bosses, kind of becomes a bullet hell. It doesn't start that way, but it like ramps up over time the further you get through.
Yeah. Well, this game looks fun. I might have to get it. It's $3.
Oh, so, man, that's cheap as fuck.
$269 on Steam. Vampire Survivors. And it's
Check it
got
out.
currently 72,000 overwhelmingly positive reviews. So, man. Can you imagine? Let me see.
Indie games. That's where all the cool stuff comes from now, right? Like, aside from like Nintendo, occasionally Square will do something, or like a company like Atlas. But for the most part, most of the big games are kind of uninspired, right? Like, and you just have to go to like these indie developers, like, okay, I know it's already been done, but look at the way I'm doing it. I got an idea.
What's amazing is like, okay, it's still in early access, but there's only 24 different characters you can choose. There's only 10 different stages. I mean, it's kind of like, yeah, it reminds me of these old mobile games that are just like kind of trash, but at the same time really fun.
Yeah.
And addictive. And it's like, you know, imagine if you sold a game for $3, but you sold it 100,000 times. This has only been out for like 3 months.
Well, like you think about the games too. Back in the NES days, where you had to come up with an original concept, but then you had to create the whole thing in assembly, right? You had to like talk and see, and build the whole thing, assembling it onto the cartridge while it's plugged into a dev kit of the console in the first place.
Yeah.
Right. That was hard. It would take a long time for somebody to come up with an original game that way. Now, if you're making a game that's like NES or SNES, like limitations, but obviously not memory, because the storage can be crazy, and even the amount of RAM that it takes could be crazy too. But like the general limitations, you could pump a game like that out at very low cost and make up way more than the game was worth to you, like your personal time, by selling it cheap to just like a million people.
Yeah. How do I get this to go full screen?
I don't know. Were you taking like the Steam trailer?
Well, no, I guess I could do that. It was on a website on Games Radar, but I was just going to show it. But yeah, but there's like 500. Yeah, it's showing like 500 characters on a screen. Yeah. You know, 500 enemies at a time. So obviously, that's something you probably could never do on the NES. But...
No, because the RAM wouldn't be able to handle it, or even the memory. Well, that is memory, but like the storage, probably wouldn't even be able to fit like integers for that many characters into the storage of the game.
Yeah, let alone each one. I mean, each one is kind of just headed towards you. Yeah. But I mean, each one technically has its own AI.
Yeah, so it'd be overload.
You know, its own.
And you end up with a memory dump at some point.
Yeah, it'd overload both the memory and the CPU.
Yeah, kaput.
At any rate, yeah, we need to come up with a Vampire Hunters type game and get Asmongold to play it and sell it 1 million times.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Vampire Survivors.
Vampire Survivors, yeah. I do have an idea for a story that takes place back in basically 1000 CE, where you're going through the Holy Roman Empire and you're taking out a vampire army that is led by Vladimir the First, who's the ancestor of Vlad the Impaler, and he's the one that's the actual vampire that all the stories come from in that one. That could
doesn't have to be
translated into a game.
Doesn't have to be that complicated.
It doesn't, but I'm just saying, like, I'm a writer. That's just how things go. You know? Stages are nicer when you've got like a narrative pulling them along.
Yeah. You work on that. I'll do the game. I wonder what you write this in. I mean, I guess you could do anything. You could do.
Yeah.
There's like, I forget what it's called. The engine that they built like Five Nights at Freddy's in originally. Very, very simple. It's called like Fusion or something.
Yeah. No, you can make it in just about anything. I mean, you could probably do the whole thing in Game Maker Studio.
Yes, I know. You can do anything in Game Maker Studio. It's the best engine ever. You're just in love with it. I got it. I understand.
It's just easy.
I know. I know.
Yeah.
I was informed of that.
I actually found the name of the engine I was fucking around with back in high school. And the reason it was so hard to find was because of the timeline. It was completely free for me to mess with it in full, not like even just a limited trial service, because I was playing around with the beta version of it. The engine didn't actually ever officially release until I think 2013, which I had already been like well out of high school by that point. And I'm like looking around for this thing, and it's like nothing's fitting the timeline until I like stumbled upon it and then started reading the development history. It was like, oh, this is it. And it was called Eclipse, was the name of the engine, Eclipse Origin or something like that. And it was just like this very simple turn-based, like top-down MMO creator for like sprite-based turn-based games. And I wouldn't use it now, but it's just like, it was bothering me so much that I could not remember the name of this thing that I was using. Like, I spent months fucking around with this thing. You'd think I'd be able to remember the name, but it was also like 2008 or 9 or whatever, so like fucking 15 years ago almost.
Yeah. I don't think I can remember anything I was doing in 2008.
But it was cool. It was a very plug and play. Like I can make all my sprites and stuff, and you can make a very Final Fantasy like MMO very easily.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Man, I really just want to make my own MMO. Because I've been playing. I told you about that Wonderland Online. You show me whatever you want. But while you're pulling it up, and I actually got back into it, and I've been playing it, and I love the game because it's a turn-based MMO. But the more I play it, ooh, that's nice. I don't know why you use a fridge, but that's nice.
Yeah, this guy has a fridge that has nothing but Bacardi and 300 copies of Jurassic Park, the NES video game.
Yeah. I don't know why you even need that many of them, but
why do you have that many? I don't think it's this guy. I think he stole it from somewhere, because right under here there's an article about it, but I just ran across.
It's also like an empty space too. Like they pulled out one of the copies, and you look up on the second shelf right in the middle.
Well, see, I don't think 4 could fit all the way across.
Okay, yeah,
so
because
I think
of the
they
way
had to tilt. They had to tilt the second column of them.
Yeah.
I was like looking at this. I was like,
there's probably a bump somewhere, because they fit like all the way across at like just underneath that. So there has to be like
oh yeah, it must be tapered or something. But I was looking at it and I was like, oh, that's a cool way to store SNES games. And then I was like, wait a minute, they're all the same game. They're all Jurassic Park. Why would I don't even want one copy of Jurassic Park on SNES.
They probably found it in like a storage unit because nobody was buying the game, and there's just like a whole bunch there, like a warehouse sale or something. Yeah, but so the more I play this game, the more and more it's like I just want to make my own, because there's things I really like about this game. But there's things I really want in this game that are never going to be in it, because this game is from like 2005.
Yeah.
2005, and it's still operating almost exactly the same way it was from back in 2005. It's like hopping into Final Fantasy 11 at this point in time. It's like, shit, I want a Final Fantasy like MMO that has like an actual flexible job system. I don't know why no game can give us that. Like, how hard would it be for something like 14 to have like the Final Fantasy 5 job system, where like, yeah, you can't switch it while you're in combat, but if you're like in resting position, you're not being attacked by anything, or you're in town, you just switch your job, but it doesn't affect your character level. Because the problem with games like 14 is you can switch your job by switching your weapon, but then your character level is all attached to your job. There's not like independent job levels. So like, why can't you have an MMO where you have an independent character level from your equipped job. That doesn't seem like it would be that difficult to do.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah,
You're
and
talking
you
about
would,
just having a character level and a job level.
yeah,
So,
that are just separate from each other, right?
Yeah.
So like your character level is
Yeah.
always going up, and your job has its own level, which would actually make it easier to
Mm-hmm.
grind a job once you get to the late game. Because that's the worst part about these games, is that it takes forever to grind a job from level 1 to max. Because then you're in areas that drop more AP, and you still have your character level to carry you, so you're just getting it up faster. I don't see why that isn't done in games.
Oh, I
Aside
don't
from
know.
maybe inflating game time, but you could just, I don't give your
Because-
players more to do otherwise.
Because only Final Fantasy 3 and 5, were
Yeah.
forward thinking enough to try it. I don't know.
Oh, and Final Fantasy X too had separate job levels.
Oh, really? 10-2?
10 too. Yeah, you had jobs in that game. It was that game is
Oh.
a job-based game.
Oh, I've never played that.
So the actual mechanics of the game are fine, but nobody plays it because the story is stupid. And it's
Yeah.
basically just dress up Barbie with guns. But I mean, the system's good. I like it. I mean, they even have like a mascot job that's like a support class, and you dress up in like a Moogle or a Cactuar outfit depending on the character who picks it up. Gun Mage, which is basically like the Mystic Knight but with guns.
Yeah.
And the Bravely Default games are basically just the continuation of Final Fantasy 3 and 5.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Dress up Barbie with guns. What game is that? Final Fantasy X-2. It's Final Fantasy X-2, which is the weirdest name for a game.
Well, it's better than Final Fantasy 13-2 and 13.
No,
well,
it's Lightning
Lightning
Returns Final Fantasy 13-3.
Yeah.
Because you have to make the names get ridiculous for some of these like spin-off or non-main series Final Fantasy games. Like that one mobile that I play is War of the Visions Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. It's a long-ass name for no reason.
Yeah.
But they want you to know that it is part of the same franchise as Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, but also that it's a different game, so it's War of the Visions. Okay.
Why don't they call it, use points or something? 13.2. I don't know.
Yeah, since Final Fantasy's an anthology, why don't these games get their own subtitles? I don't know. Some of them do, and some of them don't. Don't ask me the Japanese. Final Fantasy 15 was originally going to be Versus 13, which is already a dumb name. Type 0 was going to be... was that Nova Crystallis? Or was that the other one? There were two other Final Fantasy 13 games that were supposed to be made. Type 0 was one of them, and it just got reworked into its own game. Which, you don't play Type 0. It doesn't technically have the draw system.
Okay.
But it was made primarily by Ito by himself with the same mindset of Final Fantasy VIII. So if you don't like 8, you probably will never enjoy Final Fantasy Type 0.
Good to know.
Yeah.
I don't think I was planning to, but
I think most people just bought it for the demo for Final Fantasy 15 that was in it, which is the one that let you fight the behemoth and summon Rama.
so I mean, even when they have subtitles, they put it first. Like
Yeah.
Lightning Returns.
Yeah.
Should have been Final Fantasy 13-3 : Lightning Returns, but no, they had to do it the
Oh,
other
they
way
do this
around.
all the time, right? So again, like War of the Visions come before the actual franchise title, Final Fantasy Brave
Yeah.
Exvius. Dissidia comes before the word Final Fantasy. So you'll hear people call it Final Fantasy Dissidia because it makes more sense. But the actual name is Dissidia Final Fantasy, or Dissidia Final Fantasy Duodecim, or Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. So the Dissidia comes first every single time. There's a mobile game that goes with it called Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Opia or something like that. I'm not sure, I can't remember the last name. Opum, Opera Opum. That's it. Oppum. And it's like, why? This is such a dumb name for a game because nobody's going to know what fucking game you're talking about. Or actually, one of my favorite ones, I always call it Final Fantasy Mobius, which isn't around anymore. But the actual name was Mobius Final Fantasy. They always put the subtitle first. I don't know why. Especially if you're like cataloging things in Steam or whatever, and everything goes alphabetically. Half of your Final Fantasy games aren't even next to each other because the subtitle comes first. When if they put the actual franchise first, you'd see all of them right there in your list.
Final Fantasy is more insane than Street Fighter. Yeah.
Oh, dude, Street Fighter pisses me off with that too, right? Because you'll buy Street Fighter with 4 and 5, and it'll start off that way. But then they'll have like an expansion to it and they'll change the name. So now it's Super Street Fighter 4 and it's moved so it's not right exactly next to Street Fighter anymore, but at least it's still in the S's. Then it's Ultra Street Fighter 4, so now it's not even in the S's anymore, it's down with the U's. And Ultra Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition, or is it Ultimate? I don't even remember. It was some U name. And then they'll do the same with 6. Or 5. So eventually 5 gets moved down with 4, but it went like 3 other places before it got moved there. I'm like, just keep the franchise name at the beginning. That's all I want. That's all I want.
At least they don't call it Dissidia Final Fantasy DFF.
Yeah. Yeah. One Mobius Final Fantasy MFF. I don't care. I'll take it if I get Mobius back.
That's right.
Dude, Garland was so based. He was telling you not to trust women. They're fouler than any demon. See if I can actually find the line. I think I have it somewhere. Maybe it's on my phone. I'll read it. Dude, I fucking love that game. The game was so good, and they just took it away from us. Probably because of the Jack. I think that's actually the reason that game was going to be coming out. Where is it? I've got Garland shit in here.
Oh.
You know Jack with that origin. Yeah, so he's like, Garland, women are as foul a demon as any, and royal women are the foulest of all. And then he had this other thing where he's like, tell me, are you wise in the ways of women? Not one woman, all women, be wary of them. Whenever a man loses his path, it's always a woman that leads him astray. If the demons here are the spawn of chaos, then women are just another form of them. Fucking based Garland. And then they kind of made Garland even more based when they did turn him into Jack, so I'm not going to complain too much about that. Call the last Final Fantasy game First Fantasy.
Yeah, but then...
Yeah,
that's what they should have called.
We're going to call it Finally.
Final Fantasy Origin.
No, this is just Finally, Fantasy. That's what we're going to call it.
Yeah. They should have called the Origins one. They should have called it First Fantasy.
Yeah.
Original Fantasy.
Original Fantasy 2. Misogynistic Garland. No. Based Garland.
That's right.
He also, like, unlike everyone else, nobody else can see the Moogle except for you. But apparently Garland can too, because as you're trying to talk to the Moogle, he's like telling you not to listen to Garland. He just grabs the Moogle by the head and just tosses him 100 feet in the other direction. Garland just don't give a shit. He's trying to win you over. I don't even think I saw the end of that game either. I might just go and watch all the cutscenes because obviously they're around somewhere. I can't play the game for myself to finish it. I played most of it. The anti-penultimate Final Fantasy, yeah.
Yeah. Why is DMT a demon robot?
Because women are the foulest.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, today is the SNES's 30th birthday.
Oh, nice.
April 13th, apparently. So go play an SNES game tonight.
Well, if you got your Switch and you have online, it makes it easy.
Yeah.
There's plenty of them for you.
There you go.
Or if you're like me and have ZNES loaded up on your computer at all times, that's also an option as well.
Or if you're like me and you have an SNES Classic with a bunch of, Pirated games on it.
I recommend playing The Illusion of Gaia, which is a very, very well-crafted game that most people sleep on.
I recommend Earthbound.
That's also a good one. Yeah.
Randomly.
Yeah. Or actually, you know what? Before we close out, Illusion of Gaia is a good one. People should play that. I actually used to have a T-shirt for that my dad won from like a launch party or whatever. Like they went to go get the game at launch. But one of the most slept on RPGs of all time is an NX game. It's called The Seventh Saga that used Mode 7. And every time you went to a battle in the overworld, it would actually spin around into the Mode 7 and you would see the environment around you. And it kind of had like this over-the-shoulder view that would rotate between the monsters. And it was a really fun game where you just have like two characters. And you get to pick of the cast like which two characters you want in your party. And it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two things. Illusion of Gaia if you prefer action adventure RPGs. And Seventh Saga if you prefer turn-based ones.
Very good.
And yours was Earthbound, which is turn-based, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I'm telling you, Dragon Quest 12 better be fucking turn-based.
Oh, it better. I'm like, shoot, Dragon Quest is great. I've been finally getting back into the franchise. I will leave it again if 12 isn't turn-based. Like, just on a dime. I won't even go back and replay the good games from the series.
Definitely.
No, I'll play the good games. I'm not gonna be that harsh to Dragon Quest. It's got such a good history to it. But I won't play 12 for sure if it's not turn-based. But yeah, that's our show. Thank you all for coming. We made it to the end. If you enjoy the show, please share it with somebody else who might like it. If you really enjoy the show, consider giving a donation to streamlabs.com/Vomitorium Live, which helps us fill our hosting fees every single month. I think it's probably going to take it out of my account soon, but it doesn't matter when it takes it out. It just matters that we fill up that bar because everything just rolls over anyway. And we're at $10 out of the 25 needed for every month. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
See ya.